Bismillah, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Assalatu Wassalamu ala Rasulihil Kareem. In the previous video, we have seen how to display a value on the screen using the printf function, and the values which we have seen in the programs were like constant values. Suppose you want to add two numbers, then those values should have been mentioned in the program if you want to re- display the result of those two programs. Suppose now we want the user to enter the value during the execution of the program, and then those two values should be taken as input and then the result should be displayed. So for that we have a function in the C programming language by the name Scanf. So we'll see for that. So I am creating a file name by the name vi space read.c. So before entering any text in this editor, we need to first go into the insert mode and then include the header file hash include sorry include stdio.h, and then I am going directly for the main function main. Now in this main function, now whenever you want to read an input from the user, then you need to have variables to store that values, because that those values can then be stored in the variable, and then those variables can be used in the program. So I am creating three variables. So let us create integer variables a comma b comma c. Now what I want to do is basically I want to take the input from user in the variables a and b, and then add those two values and store the result in c and then display the value c. So now suppose you want to read a value from the user during the execution of the program, then you need to use a function scanf. So the format for scanf is, first you need to mention in the double quotes what type of value you are going to read. So now as we are reading the integer value, so the format specifier for integer is %d. So we are going to use %d for integers, and as we are going to read two values, that is for a and b, we need to specify two %d format specifiers. That indicates that I am taking two integer values from the user, and there shouldn't be any space between these two values. And then after the double quotes end, use a semicolon and then specify the address of the variables in which you want to store the value. Now I want to store my values in a and b. So now to specify the address of a and b, you need to use an operator by the name AND, which will be in your keyboard. So you just need to use AND operator followed by the variable name. That will store the first value. Now to use the second variable, use comma and then again AND operator b. So these two AND operators specify that the value of these integer variables should be stored in this address of these variables. So whatever the user enters, those values will be stored here. Now suppose I want to calculate the sum of these two values, so I can use C equals operator a plus b. So what this statement basically does is it stores the sum of a and b in the variable c. Now I want to display this value, so I'm using printf function. Printf the value of c is, so I'm going to display an integer value, so I'm using a %d format specifier and the variable name is c. Now let us run this program. So :wq to save the file, and then you need to use the command cc read space read.c to compile this file. So I have successfully compiled this file. Now /a.out to display the output. Now as you can see, the cursor is waiting for the input of the user. So I am going to enter two values, let us say 10 and then 20. You can separate the values using space bar or enter. So as you can see, the output, the value is of c is 30. So this is how we read values from a user. Now let's come back to the C program. As you can see, after I've mentioned the command /a.out, the screen was going blank, which was where the user need to enter the value. So you can just specify a printf command before this scanf, so that the user knows that he has to enter the values. Enter the two values, \n for new line, and then we can use here also \n to just format the output. Now let us save this file wq, and again we'll compile this. Just press the up arrow key so that you can go to the previous commands. Read.c ./a.out. So now we can see a command here which specifies the user to enter two values. So now we are going to enter two values, 10 and 20. So this is how we can basically format the output. It will be nice for the user, as for the user interface as well. Now we have seen that how to read an integer value. Now suppose you similarly you want to read a character value or a floating point value. So all you need to do is you just need to declare a floating point variable or a character variable, like suppose insert mode and then float f and then char ch. So now I want to also read floating point and character values as well. So I'll just use another scanf for that. Scanf, you can do it in the same scanf itself. So for the format for reading the floating point variable is %f, and for c is %c. So the first is %f. So first you need to mention the address of the floating point variable, that is at %f, and then the character variable %ch, and then closed. Now we need to display these values. So printf f value is %f. Now I want to display the character in the new line. Ch value is %c for character. So first we are displaying the floating point variable. So first we need to specify the floating point variable, then character variable. Now here we'll write another line just to indicate that the user to enter the floating point values. Printf enter float and char value. So we'll run this file, :wq to save the file, and then just move your cursor up to find the previous commands. cc space I've read.c, now ./a.out. So we are going to enter two values now, 10 and 20. So the output, I have wrote this two statements below. So I am entering float point value, so 4.5, and a character. So this is the way for reading a character value and a floating point value. Hope this helped you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.